Hi everyone, welcome back to CMD. You join me with the brand new BMW M4 competition. The example behind me has been loaned to me very kindly by Rob and the team at Rybrook BMW in Worcester. This is their current demo car, so if you are interested, feel free to drop them a line, get in touch so that you can have a look at this particular example. Now, I've watched with the rest of you for weeks, months, as car journalists and influencers review this bad boy at press releases and other events worldwide. It's been met with huge levels of praise on its performance in particular, from the likes of CarWow, Auto Trader, Harry's Garage. Even Chris Harris had some positive things to say about it. The list goes on. Removed before race, Joe Achilles, even Shmee has one in this colour. Good choice, by the way. So, is it all hype? I have 2 days to find out. Very quickly, let's talk numbers. This new S58 engine produces 510 brake horsepower, 650 Newton meters of torque, revs to 7,200 at the red line, and is good for a quoted 0 to 60 of 3.9 seconds. However, we all know that's BMW, and we all know that that is a cautious number. It's probably far more capable, especially on the rubber that this one is laden with. It's on Michelin Pilot 4Ss. The other major change from its predecessor is it is now running the ZF8 speed gearbox. The reason BMW have done that is they are prepping the car for the X-Drive model due out later this year in this country. Apparently, not that I would know anything about it, but the DCT was not fit for purpose when you start considering X-Drive. So it'll be interesting to see what that is like in comparison to a DCT box like you get on my M2 competition. This particular car is Isle of Man green. It's the launch colour, and if you see it in the flesh, you will completely understand why. It is a phenomenal colour in the flesh. If I were to order one, this would be my choice. Top of the pops for me, if not a very, very close contender. So it's time for me to get out and about in the car. So without further ado, lights, camera, B-roll. It's 5:30 something in the morning, and I am up and at 'em following a busy few days in this car. I've been put right through its paces. Everything from motorway, dual carriageway, B-road blasts, the school run, and everything in between. I've had some great time in the car. I've used it as my workhorse. I'm out and about a little bit more than I have been historically due to restrictions, as things start to gently open back up, and I thought now would be a good time to review the car. Two main reasons for the early start. One, the roads are quiet. Two, the plan was to do that yesterday after a Wheels on Wednesday event, but in truth what happened is that we parked the M4 up. We were some of the first people at the meet, which started about 4 or 5 p.m. yesterday, and were one of the last people to go because we spent a large majority of the time sat around the car with people talking about it, inside it, looking at it. It was a great night, and by the time we got some B-roll shots filmed, it was far too dark to get anything else useful done. So it was a case of early start this morning. The sun rises at 4:59 AM, which is just phenomenal here at the moment. And I get to spend more time in the car, which isn't necessarily something I thought I might be looking forward to. So a couple of 100 miles down the road, what are my thoughts? You know, I was really excited to drive this car, and why wouldn't you be? It is the mecca, the talisman of BMW M. Admittedly, that was honed in slightly, mostly because I think for me, I mean, design is a contentious issue, it's subjective, but for me, when I first saw the shot of the kidney grills, like many people, I thought BMW had lost their mind, and it just wasn't the sort of car that I look at and thought, yeah, that is a stunner. Especially this one, especially the M4. If anything, I would think I would prefer aesthetically the M3. It seems that little bit more arched at the back, and the idea of 4 doors certainly appeals to me a bit more than 2. So all I've heard about the grills from anyone who's seen the car is that they grow on you, is that they look better in the flesh, and that you sort of come to terms with them the more you get to know the car. And I agree with that to an extent, but where I disagree with that is comments like, it looks better in the flesh. It's just, to me, forgive me for being blunt, just an excuse for poor design, and that's, in my opinion, what that grille is. And I didn't think it was that bad until you see the alternatives side by side. I hope it's function, and that it's there for a good reason. It certainly performs well enough to argue that case. But for me, the verdict's still out on the kidney grills. I'm going to be openly honest and say that I'm not a fan. But as you'll hear shortly, I can't say it's affected my opinion about the car whatsoever. And that brings me on to the drive. You know this car is going to be fast, okay? It's got 500 brake horsepower, 600 pound-foot of torque. But what I wasn't prepared for is how capable and sure-footed it would be with all of that power, especially being an M car. You know, they are notorious for being leery. That's part of the reason that M car owners go for an M car. You need to know how to drive to extract the best performance from these sort of cars. And that's still the case here, don't get it wrong, but it's so sure-footed and so capable with all the safety and nanny modes on. You would be forgiven for thinking this was an X-Drive. And the pace is something I'm going to struggle to describe, I think, because it pulls in every gear. It's got an exceptional power delivery. There's no turbo lag, even in higher gears there is none. I'm telling you now, it's not there. The car is so powerful and handles. It's a rear wheel drive car on a cold morning, and I don't feel like there's much that could unsettle it. And let's not forget, this car, like most of us during COVID, has put on some serious weight. You know, it is not a small, light car. It is bigger than the predecessor. It is vastly heavier. And yet, if you drove them both blindfolded, based on the way this performs and handles, you would say that this felt like the lighter of the two by some margin. My gosh, it is lose your license fast, and it's phenomenal. The performance in this thing is like nothing else I've ever experienced. This thing would be utterly phenomenal on a track. I don't think there's much that would do everything as well. The pace in a straight line, and what they've done with the towing, the front end, Oh, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Let's talk about the ride just briefly, if I can concentrate long enough. The car handles really well, and with that obviously comes a stiff suspension setup. In the UK, on these roads, my only criticism of that is if you pop the chassis into comfort, it's not comfortable enough for a UK road. I see it working in Germany, you know, Switzerland, anywhere else, quite frankly, but here in the UK the roads are so dismal. For me, comfort could just do with that additional slack off. You know, every time I've pushed this car, with one exception, I've had the chassis in comfort, because Sport is phenomenal, and Sport Plus would be epic on track, but they're not huge adjustments, and so I would probably expect something a bit more drastic from the chassis, if I'm honest, just so when you do come into a 30, case in point, pop the box back into drive, you want to sit and cruise, that ride for me, forgivable, it wouldn't bother me, I would still order the car, quite frankly, but if I was going to be critical of it, that ride for me could be better. There's a trade-off there. You know, I can't have my cake and eat it, surely. Can I have a car that rides like an M5 and then handles like an M2? I don't think you can. I think what you have is a car like this. So in summary, performance, if you are looking at alternatives, Mercedes C63, Audi RS5, I would bet you good money this is a better drive. I cannot see how either of those cars would perform better. And what I'm really excited for is the M3 Touring, because I think actually if they can get the back end of that car right, the performance that this is pushing out in an estate would be an RS6 beater comfortably. The cabin inside is just a beautiful place to sit. I've got a huge amount of adjustment in drivetrain, chassis, steering, brakes. So the Sport brakes essentially are just far more aggressive. They're actually really good. I'm quite impressed with those. That's a nice tweak. I haven't even bothered putting the steering into Sport, because the steering in comfort is spot on and it's not vague. Suspension can go hard, but as mentioned earlier, it's finite adjustment, which is a bit pointless. And the drivetrain, you know, Sport Plus in this is just trying to think how I can explain it to you, or at least give you a visual representation. Hold on. Right, so I think we're set. We're in a 30-mile-an-hour road. Okay, I'm in third gear. I'm doing 28 miles an hour. In a minute, there's a national speed limit sign. I'm going to tell you how long it takes me to get to 60. So, down the hill, 30 miles an hour. Gonna go past the national speed limit sign. Foot down, drop. That's 60. And I called that probably a little bit late. That was actually about 65, because the speedo jumped from 55 to 65. I'll say that again. While the road's quiet, let's go from 0 to 60. 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Almost have to recalibrate your understanding of speed and what a car is capable of. I'm an M car owner, I'm an M car enthusiast. The M3, M4 is the flagship of the range. It's not the biggest, it's not the smallest. It's the car that started it all for me and many others. And so there's an awful lot of pressure on this thing to do two things well, as far as I can see. Perform on the road. This thing needs to be blisteringly fast, incredibly capable, and a bit of a hooligan if you want it to be. And it does that so well. It does that better than anything I've ever experienced. It is a league above the previous generation, make no bones about it. And the other thing it needs to do is be an antagonist. M cars are not shy in retiring. They do not blend in. They are not part of the background. They are too noisy, too much, too loud, too big, too shouty. And again, this car does that, whether you like the front end or not. I'm in the not camp, by the way, in case you missed it. It doesn't matter. It's completely irrelevant. It's the car and the personality of the M division in the first place. Arguably a very clever bit of marketing, because it's certainly got people talking about it. The looks. The car has to look like a new car, and make no bones about it. Wheels on Wednesday, sat around all the other cars. This was very blatantly the newest thing there, both from a design perspective and even just the colour. But the performance steals the show. It is so fast and so capable. You know, I came into this review not liking the car. I was upset with BMW and their branding and their design team, because I want to walk away from this and feel like it's sexy. But my God, I defy anyone who likes driving rear-wheel drive bias performance cars to get in this thing, spend a few days with it, and not come out smitten. It's just that good. It's just that good. So it's a thumbs up from me, BMW M. Well done, chapeau. What a bloody brilliant car.